Hello guys, here today we are going to discuss a weapon that is known as the Darkmoon Greatsword, otherwise known as the Moonlight Greatsword in very other FromSoft games. Now this weapon has a pretty cool weapon art that can be charged to do more damage or less damage for a quicker slice. However, this weapon has a large, long quest line in order to get it. But there are very many issues with this Moonlight Greatsword that need to be fixed and buffed. Now, if you want to know the lore of this Moonlight Greatsword, it's a weapon that was used in the defeat of Godwyn, who is a demigod, and Blade has something along the lines of, in his words, a weapon that can kill a god. So, this should be able to kill a god, right? Extremely powerful. I don't have the best stats for it right now because I have a different build. We'll ignore that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to an area that has a bunch of different enemies. Okay, this is a great location to test this weapon out. These enemies are very weak, mind you, but there are a lot of them. So it's a good place to show this off. So, they are all in a big group, and they stagger me. But this weapon can hit multiple enemies, right? Okay, you just saw me hit 2 enemies right there with the base slice, right? Let's activate my weapon art and attempt that. Ah, 1 enemy. 1 enemy again. This weapon art cannot hit multiple enemies. It can only hit 1 at a time. So by activating this weapon art, I have essentially nerfed my ability to take on multiple enemies with this weapon. Completely just removed that as a possibility. Now, it's not the largest sword, but the fact is, before I activated the weapon art on this weapon, I could hit multiple enemies, and now I cannot. Okay, so we're back. Now this time, I've gotten out a spell called Glintstone Arc. This is one of the beginner sorceries at the beginning of the game that you can get by picking the Astrologer class. I believe you get it right at the start. If not, you have to buy it from somebody, but very early in the game. So this is something you could get pretty much right at the start. And all these enemies, let's get them all grouped up. Hits multiple enemies. Hits multiple enemies, goes right through them. Hits multiple enemies, goes right through them. You see the issue? A beginner sorcery that doesn't really take any stats to wield can do that. But a legendary weapon, this is a legendary armament in their lore. Its weapon art cannot slice through multiple enemies. It stops on the first enemy. So if I'm surrounded, say I was in this corner right now, and I had 5 to 10 of these beating on me, and I had my weapon art, I'm screwed because I can only do this for 1 of them, and I'm just going to get staggered to high hell. And let's say they weren't attacking me, still, I can only do 1, which basically kills me. Whereas, if I didn't have my weapon art on, I could slice through all of them and get out of that corner. So for a legendary armament capable of killing a demigod, it cannot slice through standard general enemies. The tracking on this weapon, if you're on an elevation, but the main issue I had when I first got this weapon was, if there was an enemy underneath me in that elevation, say it was on this bit here, and I was aiming at them, my weapon art would go right over their head. Wouldn't go towards them, it'd go like this. Over their head. It wouldn't be able to track them being on this little bit of elevation down here. As you can see, this weapon does amazing damage. It does not need the damage buff. That is not what I'm asking for here. What I'm asking for is for the weapon art to be at least able to go through an enemy. Not get stuck on the first one and nerf my ability with this weapon to deal with multiple foes. Because I'm essentially being limited. Now, it's not so bad in the early game when all these enemies are really weak and it's a one-shot kill. But when it comes to late game, when enemies can like one-shot or two-shot me, that is a big issue. I'm surrounded right now. As you can see, I could hit multiple enemies. But if I have this weapon art on, I can no longer do that. I may be wanting to get rid of a more difficult enemy that's further at the back, but the first enemy's going to suck it up. Which can be the difference between life and death, you know? So, this weapon does need a change. I'm glad they fixed the tracking, where the weapon art will now hit things that are on a below elevation. But I feel like it is something that the game devs have severely missed. Kind of ruined. If you watch my playthrough before that update where this tracked, it was hard for me to hit enemies when they were below me in elevation. It was hard for me to deal with small enemies. I would miss them every single time. Like there. Now you see that? Above their head. I'm aiming at them. I'm locked on. Oh, look. Guy in a lower elevation. I can't hit them. I'm locked onto them. They are underneath me and I cannot hit them. Not only can I not go through enemies, I can't hit an enemy on a lower elevation on me. So let's say I was in one of the various enemies in the areas in the game where I'm in a cave that goes underground and there's a way down. I miss all my swings because I have the weapon art on. Let's say I'm traveling up some stairs, there's a bunch of enemies on the stairs. If I'm above them, I can't kill them. It can literally lead to what happened just there. Death. It can lead to what happened there. Death. I let myself die on purpose. Just to showcase a point. I died to poison, but imagine if that was a later game enemy. Like, we're talking somewhere up here, or possibly down here. One of these areas, one of these areas. That can literally get me killed, which is not something you want in this game. Because I'm not dying due to my mistake. I'm dying to the fact that the weapon has been nerfed and affected to a point where it's actually screwing me over. Quite significantly. The Moonlight Greatsword was given by Queen Renala, who's one of the demigods, to her loving spouse. This weapon is a weapon of the demigods, and it can't even attack an enemy underneath you, and it can't cut through multiple enemies with the weapon art and nerfs the weapon. This needs to be fixed from soft. The damage is fine. The damage is great, does great damage. It's quite a slow weapon, takes a bit of charge up, that's fine. I'm not asking for any damage changes, I'm not asking for weapon speed changes. I just want you to fix the obvious problem with this weapon, which prevents it from being a great weapon and worthy of being a legendary armament. Thank you very much, guys, for watching.